Hey guys, welcome to another video with me, Coach Matt. Today we're going to be discussing how to convert a rook and two pawns against just a king and a rook. Let's get into it. All right, guys, every now and again you'll find yourself in a rook and pawn endgame that you need to obviously convert your material advantage into a win. And let's say after some simplifying of pieces, let's say maybe it was the 5 against the 3, you simplified some pawns, and then you managed to find yourself 2 pawns up. And then that would be very much similar position to this one. In this case, obviously, we've got the connected pass pawns, which in some ways makes it a little bit easier because obviously the pawns now are able to look after one another. If you push this pawn forward, obviously this one defends. And if you push this one forward, obviously this one defends. Now, probably the only really tricky part about this end game is trying to avoid the avalanche of checks. Of course, if I'm white in this position, of course, we always talk about never give up and that fighting spirit that we want to try and instill into all of us, because every game matters and every point counts, and we just, we don't want to give up. We don't play that way. We play to win. We do our best, and that fighting spirit is most crucial. So I've seen many people hold a draw in these positions with a rook and a king, because if black doesn't have the correct technique, and technique is an appropriate word, that's probably the best way to describe the finesse required to win these end games. So end game technique is very, very important. So here we're going to just try and avoid the checks. And I think if you're able to do that, the rest will be quite simple. It'll be kind of like a normal king and pawn end game where you just march the 2 pawns up the board. Slowly and surely, and making sure that we protect the pawns and look after the pawns. That's really the only concerns that we have. So let's start off. Let's go king f6. You'll see now why I chose this move. Of course, I'm already preparing for the check. And I'm saying, okay, if he checks me, I got him covered. Let's say he does this, we go rook here, because this is an important thing we need to discuss here as well now. Of course, black would be celebrating deep down. He just do a little jig there if white considers even taking that rook on e6. Obviously, rook e6, king e6, and this game is now just, it's pretty much game over. I believe I've done a video on this. Not exactly sure when. We've certainly covered it in many of our sort of classes and examples, where you just kind of march the king and the 2 pawns slowly but surely up the board. And then we eventually promote, and from there, then it's just an elementary checkmate. So, of course, white is absolutely not interested in trading rooks. We've addressed this before. You don't simplify, you don't trade when you are behind on material, when you're losing. Just because you're losing now doesn't mean you're going to be losing later. It's possible still to win this game. You might catch your opponent with a nasty trick. Maybe white can play here. I'm going to play here anyway. And let's say rook here, which is actually a good move because we're eyeing out some checking distance. And then let's say white plays something like this. Now black could take his eyes off the ball. He could just fall asleep for a moment. Ooh, I'm not paying attention. Let me just push a pawn. Looks good to me. Rook check. We've got a little bit of a skewer here. The king has to move off the line, and there goes the rook, and with it, the game. These things can happen. They do happen. I've seen it happen many times. Keep your eyes peeled and make each move count. Anyway, we're going to continue with this. We're going to continue down this path, this variation. Obviously, what is he threatening? Oh, yeah, rook h6. He wants to just snatch my rook and the game with it. No, thank you. Let's make sure we don't allow that. So king e5. I'm going to start getting my king in. And again, I need to be weary of the checks. So I need to have a plan to march the pawns forward, but I need to also be able to avoid the checks. Rook check, probably not the best move, but I can certainly see it being played by people. King f4, and now I've got a little bit of a wall here. All right, so white's like, I see he's escaping the checks. He goes rook here. Probably just to try and harass you a little bit more. I see now we've almost got an opposition. You've seen something similar here with, if the king was here, it would be perfect opposition, and I'd force the king one file back. I'm basically going to do that anyway here, because king h3 looks like it's got it running into g4, which actually ends up getting mated. King h3, g4, king h4, rook h2, and that's the ball game. Unfortunately, that is going to be made for the white pieces. Probably not over the moon about that if you were playing white. So white doesn't have a great deal of opportunity going forward. So he's going to have to come back. Let's say opt for either f1 or g1. I don't think it makes too much difference. Let's go g4. Now we start. We've got him where we want him. We've got him trapped. As you guys have probably noticed from all of our checkmate videos and me giving guys advice about these things, is it's not so much about the check when it comes to checkmating the king and converting these games. It's about having the king trapped. It's far more important. So we're all about trapping him. Yes, we might have to do a few checks in order to make that happen, but the trapping is what we're after. And once we've got him trapped, then we can deliver the final blow. All right, so let's continue as advertised. We'll go with g4. Yeah, rook b4 check. Okay. My heart wants to go king f3, and then, ooh, you know, I'm setting up a nice mate threat here, which looks quite nice. Obviously, there's just another check, so it kind of looks amazing, but it's not too good. I'm just going to see that it's not the end of the world. We're just taking, we have to go back and he checks again. Just a reminder to not repeat the position too many times. Remember, there is that threefold repetition, which is basically repeating the same position 3 times. If you do that, they are entitled to claim a draw based on the repetition rule. And obviously, we would not like that very much. I'm just going to come back here. Yeah, just to avoid the checks. There's no check here. I think this is still a good move, though, because he pins the pawn, prevents you from playing f4. I'm trying to make it difficult, trying to find good moves for white. Of course, if white played some questionable moves, then life would be a lot easier for black just to roll the pawns on forward. So now it looks like I can play g3. I generally don't like splitting the pawns like this. In this case, it's fine. I can see I'm going king g4, and I can see I'm going f4. I've got an eye on that. I'm not sure if rook b4. Let's go here. He tries to prevent the king going forward, but that way I can blockade with the pawn, now opening a square for the king, and it's starting to look a little bit scary for white. You can see the pawns and the king are getting into the game, and that's probably going to be impossible to defend. Rook b8, threatening rook g8 check, but I can see that I've got a little nest here on f3. So if you check me, I will just be able to run to f3. I don't really see what else he can try. Okay, so let's assume rook g8, king f3 is lost, because it is lost. I'm threatening mate. So let's say king here. Probably just go like, say, check, king here, g2. Next move, g1, unstoppable. And that's dead. So let's say they go rook b3 in order to prevent me from going there. Now I think I can just push f3. I kept in mind that I do have this king h3 after rook check. I feel like they have to go rook check. Yeah, now I'm threatening mate on the back rank again. So let's go rook here to try and prevent that. And then a nice winning move here. Rook h2. Sometimes you can do that with the rook, swing the rook across. Again, I'm threatening mate because the king doesn't have any of these exit squares. That's the key point. But I'm also now looking at the rook. So if you were thinking maybe rook e1, I mean king e1 rather, sorry, then rook h1 and I pick up the rook. Instead, king g1 to blockade the square, f2 forces the king out. And that is it. Obviously, the next move I promote, and from there, it's a simple ladder method. Whatever method you like, remember, it's up to you. Simplicity is what we always promoting here. Keep your life simple and don't overcomplicate it. Okay, so what was the highlights of this one? Guys, you need to avoid the checks. And if you're the defender in this position, you need to go for the checks. Of course, the defender doesn't want to trade off the rooks, whereas the person with the pawns up whoever that might be, is very much interested in trading the pieces. Slowly but surely march your king and pawns up the board whilst avoiding perpetual check and whilst looking after your pieces. Guys, play through this video a couple times, check this position out, make sure that you understand it, and make sure that you're able to win these positions with the extra 2 pawns. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, bye-bye.